It is Wednesday, the 5th of February, and we're going to take a look at crypto, which is behaving very weirdly. But I think that this is quite normal after we've had a really big shakeout in the market. And we've seen this before, in FX, when you have a really volatile move in an FX market. And then following that, it kind of takes the market a little while to calm down and re-establish positions, especially when you think how many people got liquidated on Monday. I think there was the estimates are somewhere between 10 and 20 billion in liquidations in crypto positions. So some people are going to go straight back in and revenge trading, and other people are kind of still nursing their little wounds a little bit before they jump back in. In terms of this week, there's lots going on in the news. Tomorrow we've got the Bank of England. Friday we've got non-farm payrolls, which is the big jobs number in the US, which I think actually might at some point become a little bit of a doozy. I don't know how fast, but even Chairman Powell has noticed that people who lose their jobs are having a lot of trouble finding another job or another job similar to the one that they used to have. And that's going to hurt at some point because so many people who had government jobs are losing those government jobs. But for now, I don't think crypto cares about anything except what Donald Trump says and is doing. And, really, when you think about it, we've got the best macro conditions, that we've ever had. We've had the largest, most powerful government in the world is now very pro crypto and holds, 300 million of ETH and his own meme coin. And so it's a little bit confusing, that crypto isn't doing a little bit better. Yet, I say. So let's talk about where we are. So Monday we had this really nasty, all the way down to the lows, tariff shakeout, followed by tariffs off, huge bounce. And then yesterday, after the huge bounce, we had the pullback day. And it was a pretty ugly day, let's be honest. Across the board, we had pretty nasty pullbacks. And it feels a little bit like we're doing a little bit of a sine wave, when we have the big move and then everything has to calm down again. And when it does that and everything bunches up, then we start to have a bigger move. Let's talk about what's going on in ETH. BlackRock yesterday, this is today, 100,000 ETH worth 284 million. That's almost as much as Donald Trump owns. And if we look at the inflows into the Ethereum spot ETFs, this is really huge. If we go back in time, this is almost as big as the biggest one we've ever had, the biggest inflows. So are people copying the president? Certainly his son is trying to pump ETH on Twitter, so we will take a look at ETH as well. First of all, let's talk about where we are with Bitcoin. And if we look at this is a 4-hour chart. So, big picture, before we had this really nasty tariff shakeout, this to me looked like we'd had a really nice strong move and we were making a very nice 3-wave correction. We're ready to go up again. The problem is that when you've got, this is a daily chart, when you've got flat moving averages like this, so this is a 50 moving average and a 20 moving average, when they're flat and going sideways, what we've really got is a sideways range, and here we are kind of in the middle of this sideways range. And in between these moving averages, we're kind of washing back and forward between them. The daily 50 moving average is normally a pretty sharp turning point. You can see it was the high here, then we got above it, it was the low, a support, and it's normally pretty sharp. And this today, so far, we haven't been able to get back above it. We're just kind of trading very calmly and sideways. If I look at the price action on a lower time frame, for me, this kind of looks like big rally and 3-wave correction, and I'm looking for this to turn up again, and it hasn't quite done it and turned higher. What I like to do when I look at a 4-hour chart like this is I connect these highs of this kind of channel that we're in, and I look for a breakout. We haven't got it, and I look for a kind of strong green that breaks out. I've changed to Heikin-Ashi, looking for a strong green that breaks out above this trend line and pushes through these moving averages. And when I do this, and we'll look for this breakout, so here this would be above 99,100 for me. The first target is going to be a retest of the highs because we are in a pretty nasty range, and if we break above that, I'm going to look for this to move higher in the next swing higher. So I'm going to look for this swing that we are in to have a relationship between these two waves. So if we're lucky, we get an equal measured move that takes us back to these highs, which would be at back up to 107,500. And I would also look for it to have a mathematical relationship with this big swing that we had here. And that puts us to 103,500. So kind of two levels that I would be looking for if we were to rally. But you know, the problem with crypto is very often, particularly with bottoms, and we saw it exactly what I mean here. Very often, you know, when it looks like we're on our way up again, crypto assets love to make a sweeping retest of the lows. So, and quite often a lower low. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if this big low down here at the bottom of this range gets retested before we find some buyers. And I'm gonna be very cautious, waiting for that buy signal and waiting for that breakout, if you like, from here. As you know, on all time frames, I like to use a CCI, which is also a kind of moving out average strategy. So I'm looking for a breakout, and this really isn't kind of turning up higher yet. In crypto, we're just sideways, not quite the breakout we've been looking for. And again, as I said, it's disappointing, especially, you know, we've got all of the big macro stuff that we need lined up for crypto to outperform. And at the moment, you know, we've got a weaker dollar as well, which should really have been helping. It's certainly helping other assets. Maybe we have to wait until the end of the week for everything to calm down and we break out again. So what about ETH, which looks like it's getting some interest, you know, and I always kind of like to be in the trades with the big boys. If I look at the price action in ETH, we had this huge pin bar. I have to say, I hate these huge pin bars with long tails. I have friends who say they won't even trade them unless they see the low retested as a bullish bar, just because the risk reward isn't there when you have such a long tail. Because where are you wrong when you buy ETH here? You know, you're wrong underneath this low. You kind of really want a bigger pullback. And if we go down low on the lower time frames, here's our first bounce. We're waiting for this three-wave pullback. Haven't got it in ETH as well. We're also underneath this 4-hour 20 moving average. If we look at it on the hourly as well, I would normally say, gosh, this is a textbook three-wave correction, but we really haven't broken out from this consolidation either. We've got one of those kind of really nasty little, we could call this a flag if you like, but we haven't broken out from it. That's the problem. And so when that happens, we're still in this downtrending channel, if you like, and this is what we kind of need to break above. When I was looking at this before, and this is why this pink line is here, this is kind of what we need to get above and hold above if we're going to see more upside. So this is how I'm looking at ETH. This is an hourly chart, and that's what I'd really like to see a breakout, holding above 2,800 to be in the next swing higher. And then I can have targets, because I can base it on this first bounce off the lows and a mathematical relationship. Say this holds as the low, I'm going to have my target here 3,100 and 3,400, and we keep going up from higher from here. But for now, this is still getting beaten up and no breakout yet. The two that I was looking at and posted in my group last night was Ripple and Doge, because they were looking very clearly to me like flag patterns. And I was thinking we would see a bounce here because we'd had a textbook equal measured move. In Ripple, this is Ripple that we're looking at. If we zoom out, I think we're actually pretty close to the level where we might find support. And this might just be one of those shakeout retests of yesterday's low. And the reason is that if I measure from this high to low, this was a big bounce to the 61.8 fib level. And if I go down to the 4-hour, when you do that, when you reverse to 61.8, you usually find some support at this 38.2, and then you can say the 50% through the middle is the pivot level, and above that is the breakout. And that would kind of line up with where we are. So we can say for Ripple to be breaking out from this little downtrending channel that we've been in since Monday high, we would need to close and hold above 2.58, and then that's the next swing higher. And as long as we don't, and we're still in this downtrending channel, we're not going up again. So above 2.58 on our next swing higher. And then again, for targets, we can do the same, measure from this low. From this low, here's our first target then, 3.05, and then second target would be a retest to the highs at 3.42, and if we get above that, then we're in a bigger swing higher and new all-time highs for Ripple. If we don't, and if we can't get back above 2.58, unfortunately, we're still going down and still in a pullback. Doge was in a very similar pattern last night. Now, if we go back on the weekly here, I was pretty excited about this bounce in Doge, and the reason I was pretty excited is this was a textbook equal measured move back to the weekly 50 moving average. There was lots to like about this on the weekly, and here on the daily is this lovely price action that we had, also bouncing from the daily 200 moving average. So what about the similar pattern going on here? Well, if we go down to the 4-hour, you can see here's our lovely big bounce off the lows. It's not quite clear that we've got our 3-wave pullback yet, is it? And again, we could actually see a little bit of a bigger one, a bigger shakeout here in Doge. And if we go down to the hourly, we can have a look at it. If we say that this was our first swing lower here, like this, we can make it very simple, and we can't, this is a low we can't get back above. We could end up going down to 0.23, and you know, really we kind of need to hold above these hourly moving averages to be going up again, and we have not managed to do it. We had a little bit of a false breakout here. If we draw this one as a channel, haven't managed to sustain it. So unfortunately, the pullbacks are still happening, and we are still kind of simulating the damage from Monday and the shakeout. So I would just say have the faith. This was a really lovely big bullish move clearly from this low in on Monday in Doge. This was clearly 5 waves up, so a big 3-wave pullback should be a buy. The problem is that sometimes, because this is crypto, it's not just a simple 3-wave pullback. It might end up come all the way down here and have a retest of the lows and a retest of that 200-day moving average and so on. So still soaking that long entry in Ripple and Doge, and all of these kind of bigger coins as well. Let's talk about some of the other ones that I think maybe are quite interesting. So Griffin is one of them. And the reason that I like watching Griffin, if we go out to the daily, you know, this bounced for me from a really big deal 61.8 fib retrace. That's all the way from the lows when it launched to the highs here it made on the 22nd of January. And we can see all the other fib levels work very well. Now, here's the rule: when you bounce from if you draw fib retrace levels from this low to high, when you bounce from a 786 fib, it's like a ladder. You need to be going up again. You need to close above this 61.8 and hold above it. So in Griffin, it needs to be 0.249. That's the level that we have to hold above to have made a bottom, and that's what we couldn't do here on the hourly. Then we're doing that bigger thing, you know. I again really like this bounce, just like a few of them. This looks to me like 5 waves. So when we've completed a nice 3-wave pullback, I think that this should be ready to go up again and have another go and to hold above that 0.25 level. The problem is we are still in this bigger pullback. If we look for kind of an ABC, you know, we could come all the way back to the lows and come all the way back to 0.13 in this one as well. So I'm stalking this because bigger picture, I like the setup. And so this retest of the lows will be quite important. CRV is another one that I quite like. If we go all the way back to the lows of last August to this high, which I think was 5 waves, we've had a really steep pullback again to a 786 fib. Really nice bounce, strong bounce off the lows. If we go down to the hourly, it's not so immediately obvious that this one was 5 waves like that Griffin chart was. But either way, you know, it should be at 1, 2, 3. So this pullback is viable. Well, so here's our first swing lower. Here's our little bounce in the middle. I think we see another leg lower, and I'm watching this one to see what happens when it retests the lows. Quite a lot of these AI coins have pretty similar setups. Let me find this one here. This is PAL, AI, PAAL. Again, this was a really strong bounce. I've drawn my fibs on this MEXC chart from the low in September to the high that we made at the beginning of January. 786 fib level. We bounced really nicely, but we couldn't close above this 61.8. So I'm looking for this to go sideways and make a base here. And I'm looking lower time frame to see how did this first bounce unfolds. And to me, this looks potentially like it's done 5 waves as well, 3 waves back. It's very messy in this one. It's not quite ready, so I'd like to see what happens on a retest of this 786 fib level in PAL, PAAL as well. So there's quite a few out there that are potentially setting up. For example, here's H bar. Let's look at this on a weekly, and we can apply some fib rules in this one. Now, if we go from the low that we made in October to this high, we bounce very nicely from this 61.8 fib. So the rules in this one, you know, is the gold. This is the golden ratio zone. So we're now going to bounce in between this 61.8 and this 38.2. The price action so far is setting up very nicely. The problem is that when you do that, so when you bounce in a 61.8 and you go up to the 38, very often you come back and you look for this 50% level in the middle to be support if we're going to go higher, and it's at 0.2215. And if we get underneath 0.2215, unfortunately we don't find support there, or we drop underneath it. Unfortunately, this is going to continue, and we're going to look for this double bottom. So still, although we've had a really nice bounce, it's not quite yet, unfortunately, the bottom that we are looking for. So when we looked at this on Monday, there was a couple of other coins that I think that were quite interesting that we were looking to see if they could find some support. One of them was Fart coin, wasn't it? I can't find anything. Here we go, Fart coin. So this is another one which bounced from, we put our fib retrace levels from the low when it launched to the high that we made middle of January, and this is us at this 786 fib level, also previous support. I quite like this look of this one, and I was watching to see if we could find some support and bounce here. And we know the rules. If we can get above this 61.8 level at 1.03, you should see a really nice big swing to 1.66. So far we had a nice bounce, but not quite bottom, and now we're back retesting this level. So this becomes really important. You know, I'm watching to see now if we can make a double bottom, or if we make one of those kind of false breakdowns. And if we do that, then yeah, that would be a good look. If we don't, or if we get stuck underneath this level, it's not the bottom that we're looking for yet in Fart coin. So there are a few of them out there. Mobi as well was another one that had a really decent bounce. If we look at this on the daily, another one, I've put my fib retrace levels in this one all the way back to the low at 0, just because it worked with all of these other fib levels in Mobi, and that's a good one because quite often you don't know when the chart, you were looking at, how much it traded in before you looked at the chart. So I put it back to 0. Obviously they all started at 0 once. So we bounced from this 786, couldn't hold above this 61.8. This is another one where decent bounce, but not quite the reversal. So now we either need to see kind of a, let's go down to the alley here. We need to see a breakout from this kind of channel or declining wedge that we are in, and we could, like a lot of crypto, see a full retest of the lows here, and hopefully people aren't too beaten up when that happens and are ready to buy. Clearly, if you want to wait for the safe trendier entry in Mobi, it would be if we can hold above 0.0764. So, ugly, nasty pullbacks. It is confusing for people, I know, given that everything is really kind of lining up for crypto. But I think that the opportunities are coming and we need to be ready. Just there's a lot of uncertainty out there. So good luck. Let me know if there's a chart you'd like me to look